What is good, everybody? What is good? What is good? Hello, 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 hello. Crazy, crimpy, humid hair. So just, it is what it is. Bear with me. Oh my goodness. So today is Momentum Monday, and I have a word. I have a word. It sort of fizzled out of last week, if I'm honest, but it's really been coming together. So I want to release this to you all and help you in your Momentum Monday here. And if you're new, Momentum Monday is all about being intentional about the energy, about the thoughts, about the attitudes, about your intentions, about the motives of your heart, about really how you show up and slay the day, so to speak. A lot of times, there's the saying floating around, a case of the Mondays, or it's Monday, right? But you don't need to adopt that mentality or that lifestyle. It could actually be something that you wake up looking forward to start each day. That's legit possible, but it doesn't happen without effort and doing the inner work. So this Momentum Monday word is designed to help you think deeply, reflect, and then take your takeaways and integrate them and implement them, because that's really where the change happens. So last week, literally a week ago today, this starts with sort of a downer, but it builds, so bear with me. So last week, Monday, June 1st, I found out that my adoptive mother transitioned, okay? And this is something that was unexpected news. This was something that was interesting to process, particularly with different family members, because I have been unable to connect with her or see her since I was 13 for sure. And it was really rough there for at least, I would say, from when I was 10 to 13. There was a lot of just turbulence and a lot of cray going down in my family of origin and my house that I grew up in. My adoptive mother had the disease of alcoholism, and it got really, really bad in that time. And so much so that she lost custody. We weren't allowed to see her and visit with her, any of that. So I haven't had her in my life at all. And I share this because I was challenged to honor her, to reflect on her role and her influence in my life, to hold space and help different family members process, and to really sit in that and sit in the emotions of it, and the thoughts of it, and the experiences. I mean, when you have something like that happen, it's just right, like it just hones you in on the moments, and there's never a great time to deal with that. But I bring that up because it blends well with the message that I have today. And so I found myself, sometimes when you're in conversation and reflecting on something, you actually hear yourself piece together something that maybe you knew inherently, but when you say it out loud, you're like, whoa, like I didn't really recognize that. That's powerful, right? So what was coming up for me was that because of my adoptive mom's role, influence, place in my life, it inspired me at such a young age to go deeper, to look for the more, to really be desperate and hungry for answers that I wasn't experiencing, right? I knew that running from life or suffering like that couldn't be the answer, right? And life can't be so bad that's the alternative, right? I really sensed and felt strongly that there was a huge communication gap. Like we just, in our family, didn't have the skills to communicate. So it set me on a journey to start like hunting for tools to help me communicate and express myself better in the world. I am so driven for connection and for seeing people and letting them know they've been seen, and really allowing myself to be seen and received by people as well. Keeping my love on, so to speak, but really learning what is unconditional love and what is real love, and what is this love that I'm not quite experiencing, right? When you shut off the valve to your love, there's all these other issues that can happen, right? So like, what really is going on here? So what I recognized from her life was that it was full of a lot of pain and a lot of suffering, and that no matter how much we like repress that and try to shove it down, that doesn't make the pain go away, right? And a lot of times, all that unrepressed stuff comes out, manifests in very strange ways, right? And we try to numb the pain, we try to run from the pain, and they can turn into full-blown addictions and disease, right? So when I was reflecting on her role in my life, what I remember a lot about her growing up was that she really wanted family. In fact, like how our is a crazy story in and of itself, but she really had a desire for family. She loved doing everything extra. So from full-blown 3-course meals pretty much every night of the week to having us in all the activities, whether it was Girl Scouts, dance, whatever, to gardening, to house cleaning. Like we had chores, okay? We were down to those floorboards. And that was just, it was a lifestyle that she really worked hard, to create. And so I had a couple of reflections and things that came up. One of them is when your outsides get bigger than your insides, you're in trouble. Okay. So it's never a good thing to be chasing and to try to create something that you don't have the character or the development to sustain, right? You kind of implode. So keep that in mind, especially as we are in a time where social media and putting this image out there of everything's good, you could literally be being eaten alive on the inside and nobody would know. And that's not a good thing, right? So that's a takeaway. But really and truly, it had me think differently about, again, who you get to become in the world. When I think about my adoptive mother, I think about life and what really is life in living, right? The word says, John 10:10, I have come that you may have life and have it more abundantly. Okay. But do we all tap into that? Do we all step into that abundant life, right? Do we live from that every day? Does everybody have a relationship with God or know God, right? So these are questions, right, that came up. So as I'm thinking about her life, I'm thinking about legacy, about impact. And I think it's important, no matter who is in your life, we don't always get to choose who, right? But no matter who is in your life, you can choose to honor them and respect them and love them. Sometimes if that's at a distance, and you can choose to see, how has this inspired my life? How has this helped shape me and make me who I am today? How has this changed how I show up in the world? So for example, I have had, because of her influence, I do not aspire or enjoy, and I cannot just live a shallow life. Like I go out into the deep, right? So why that's a blessing is there's been seasons in my life where I can feel that temptation feel and to keep moving, to keep pushing, but I know better because I know what it looks like. Or even through high school, like I didn't drink. I was the designated driver. I didn't go down these paths of drugs and alcohol because I'd seen that movie before and I'd seen it at its worst, right? So I had a lot of healthy boundaries set in place by the extremes that I had seen and had experienced, but it also had me on a path of purpose and meaning and really figuring out, who am I, why am I here, and how am I going to do it? What does that look like, right? Like I clearly am here given like what I've been coming through. Like it's on purpose, right? Like I don't get to decide the breath that's in my body. None of us do, right? None of us know how long our lives are, right? But we get to choose how we live them. And that absolutely is a choice, and whenever it comes to an addiction, it's tough. Because in the beginning, it's like nobody is actually putting that bottle in your hand, or nobody's telling you to smoke that cigarette, right? We choose that. And then it becomes something that works against us and can cost us our life. So at any rate, I wanted to hold up that story because I really was sitting in so much gratitude and so much honor, even though a lot of my experiences were very traumatic and very heavy and deep and intense and not what I would wish upon any child to go through. I still honor and I still am so inspired by the role, the impact, the influence that my adoptive mom had in my life because of how responsible it makes me. Literally, my ability to respond to life is different. So for example, I'm more aware of when I'm trying to run away from something or when I'm trying to repress something or when I'm, I really pay attention. I'm woke on a different level, right? Because of that. So I live deeper every day. I also am way more intentional about my impact on people around me because unfortunately, when you're caught up in an addiction, that's all you think about. And so I really felt the abandonment and the betrayal and the loss and the gap of not having a mother in my life. So I'm really intentional about how I impact and influence people. Like I can think that through. I've really developed empathy and really have developed sort of like spiritual mothering in a lot of ways. And then I also am very purpose driven. So I'm not so much materialistic things driven, but I'm purpose driven and spirit led, right? So just want to say that even if something bad is happening, right? God turns the curses of our lives into blessings, okay? And God works all things for good for those that are called according to his purposes, right? So just wanted to hold that up, that it's really interesting. So rather than complain or murmur and be upset by what we've been through, we can choose to find the meaning. How is this shaping me for good? What can I learn from this? How can I progress from this? How can I create and establish a new legacy? How can I make sure that this stops with me? How can I, in my case, carry her legacy forward, right? Take where she could get to and take it further. How can I do that, right? So I just want to hold that up first and foremost as a call to action, right? We do get to choose how we live our days. And I want to hold that up, right? And when we turn it over to things that are not healthy and not productive, those things can get control over us pretty quickly. Okay, so this is a call to action about really becoming woke or awakened to this life that you do actually want to live. And I'm going to give you a couple of ways that you can think this through, process this, and make it practical for you. So first and foremost, what if this is another like sort of like deep question. So two, because this one is coming into my head. So we have to do this very strange assignment I must have been a freshman. I think I was a freshman in college, and we had to do a very weird assignment. I studied in undergrad journalism. So we had to write obituaries, and we had to write our own obituary. Very, very weird, super uncomfortable, right? The things that you think through when you're doing that, it is super awkward and uncomfortable, right? Something that is not a fun experience at all, but it's incredibly deep and eye-opening. So think about that, right? Depending, and I know, I think Joel Osteen actually does this. I think I heard him preach this one time, that he actually reads the obituaries in the morning, just like you would read your news, because it inspires him to live his days to the full, right? And there's actually a scripture in the word that says, teach us to number our days, which means teach us to live them full out, essentially, right? So at any rate, think about that. If you were to write your own obituary, what would you want highlighted about your life? It's very eye-opening when you think about how you live your life, particularly if you're doing things that you're like, man, I shouldn't be doing this, but I keep doing this thing. Like, wake yourself up if you have to. Write your own obituary. Deep, but intense and very eye-opening. Also, though, what if this were your last day on earth? I know when I've interviewed a lot of people that what comes up often that they're afraid of, particularly when they're in their later years of life, is that what they wish they would have done, right? So I wish I wouldn't have let other people's opinions have so much control over my life. I wish I wouldn't have taken that bad advice and followed my gut, right? I wish I would have gone after this dream, right? Rather than being afraid and watching other people live their dreams, right? Like things like that come up when it seems the days are shorter, right? And that's all relative, okay? So think about that. If you were to write your own obituary, what would you want written in there? What would you want highlighted in there? Secondly, if this were your last day on earth, like what do you want to be able to say, right? Like, so for example, from my own story, I want to live fully tapped out. Like no juice left. Like I came here, I did what I was supposed to do, like juiced it all out, and then that's a wrap, right? So like that's an example. Like the worst thing would be having all of this untapped potential on the inside, that like there was so much that I was actually supposed to be relating with and engaging in and taking action around, and I didn't do it. Like that would be the worst thing, right? Because I'm pretty sure that's not why I'm on this earth, right? For such a time as this. So think about that as your first step, Okay. Now, next is put boundaries in place because they're necessary. And a lot of times we learn about boundaries when they're needed or we have an experience that's uncomfortable. So, for example, we see them a lot in the context or in the vehicles of relationships. So, when we start to get frustrated or angry, usually it's from a boundary, either being crossed, not established, not communicated, something, but it usually has to do with a boundary or an expectation. So, have clear boundaries that you need so that you can really honor the life path that you're on, the journey that you're on. Because if you don't have them, and if you're not planning ahead, so to speak, there will be the distractions, there will be the temptation. So, you need to be guarding against those things. And having a guard against them is having like guardrails, right? So, picture, oh my gosh, if you've ever done like a road trip cross country, there's some states that you go into and it is crazy, like there's these like big mountainous terrain, right? And they've got these like nets, these like wire nets over these rocks so they don't fall on the road, and there's like no guardrails on some of these like drops, right? You're like, how in the world, like this seems like a video game. Right? Like this does not seem like it can be real life. There's no safety to this at all, let alone if it was covered in snow and ice or something, like, woo, right? So, for example, there's still some controls though. Like they had the nets for a reason. That's a boundary, right? A lot of times there should be guardrails, right? So you don't just go flying off the road. So we need the same thing because we're susceptible to that. Another example, visually speaking, for all you visual people, is picture a cruise ship, right? Because the world is opening up and we can start doing stuff like that again. If there is not a captain actually steering the ship, it will start to drift on its own. We're like that, right? If we are not thinking about what we're thinking about, if we're not being intentional about how we're taking action, if we're not being really aware of the words that we're speaking over our life and what we're declaring over our life, if we're not paying attention to what we're exposing ourselves to and what we're absorbing, right? If we are not really clear about who we are doing life with, there's so many ways that we can be pulled and caused to drift and pulled into temptation and getting distracted, right? And getting off the path, so to speak. So boundaries are important, whether that's in relationship. So, it could be something as simple as if I'm around somebody that likes to gossip, I'm going to communicate that I don't tolerate that. So we're not going to do that when I'm around, or you might need to distance yourself from that person. Right? So your rule might be no gossip, right? I choose to speak life. I believe that words are powerful, and I'm not going to be around people that enjoy doing that. Like I'm not going to make space for that in my life, right? So that's an example, but make a list of boundaries that you need in your life, whether that's relational, whether that's with your health, right? Maybe it's having a consistent sleep schedule or drinking a gallon of water a day, or making sure that you move your body for at least 30 minutes a day. Maybe it's investing in personal development every day. Whatever it is, have your boundaries. For example, having quiet time every day, uninterrupted you time to actually process and pray and unpack what's going on with you so that you actually can be more aware and conscious as you live your daily life, one day at a time and one moment at a time. Okay. Now, lastly, number 3 is what is that thing that you are led to do that you would say, I'm going to do it next year? Or when I get X amount of dollars, then I'll do it. Or when I make this connection, then I'll do it. I'll step out when X, Y, or Z happens, right? A lot of times we have something that we are inspired to do, yet we keep putting it off. We keep moving it back, and we don't start chipping away at whatever that divine strategy is, that divine download is, that God dream is. Like we actually don't start stepping into that thing because we're telling ourselves all the reasons why it's not time, why you can put it off, when the fact is you don't know, right? What if the time is now to start chipping away at that? With me? So for example, I have been a coach since 2008. Okay. This is something that I am wired for. Like literally it's in my DNA. It's part of the giftings that God has given me. And it's something that has required a ton of work, right? It's not a cute title, let me tell you. And it's something that requires constant ongoing training and development, okay? Particularly as the business grows and evolves, usually it changes with you. And so there's many renditions and seasons that it goes through. All right. Now, I haven't seen that model before, right? I haven't known what that looked like. But if I don't recognize that and understand that, then every step is going to be frustrating because I'm going to think that I'm supposed to be here when I'm only here, right? So what the important thing is when you know what your dream is and you're chipping away at it every day, that is far more fulfilling than wondering what if. Okay. So I came to a place that it was like, no matter what it takes, I'm here for it because this is my purpose. This is what I'm called to do. Right. And I show up hard for the people that I'm called to serve. Right. So I'm going to perfect that and I'm going to get better at that every day. Right. Because that is what I'm here to do. Right. That's part of what I'm here to do. So when you know that and you're working towards it every day, you're living a fulfilling life. You're living full every day. So you're keeping your own oxygen mask on first. That's one of the things you absolutely have to do if you're in a service industry. And then you're able to pour out into others. So there's a constant full filling that is happening, right? You're getting full and you're dumping that out and you're getting the doing of that as well, right? So I am living fulfilled every day simply because I choose to, rather than wondering what if, right? And then with that comes those like risks and those scary goals and investments and stretching, right? So think about that for you. What is the thing that you don't want to say, I wish I would have, right? So I was listening to a client and she, crazy, wicked, smart, talented person, right? But she's married, has kids, is an engineer, and is going for a doctorate to become an astronaut, right? And so even for her at her high level, she was really torn emotionally, so like in tears because she sit with the thought of not actually pursuing the astronaut career and that dream, right? So the work that happened there was getting her to talk through at the end of her life, would she be okay not doing that, right? So, she was able to invest in her family and develop her career and all that, but is she okay that she didn't do that? Or is that something that she's got to do? Like she has to do it. And she got to the place where she has to do it. And so she was led to her next step to do so, whether that's just getting information, making that phone call, sending out that email, whatever it is. When we're in action, that's when we know. Okay. So if we're just thinking, we can get into analysis paralysis, or we can run into information overload and just kind of psych ourselves out and never take action. But we learn and we get our feedback when we actually are brave enough and courageous enough and bold enough to take action, no matter what the outcome is. We don't know as much as we think we know. We don't know, right? So think about that. Okay. So I'm going to just kind of recap this. If you're just coming on now, I shared a story about my adopted mother and the life she led and how that inspires me to live my life, right? And what I'm giving you is who might you become if you go for it? Who might you become if you go for it? So ways that you can backtrack from there, reverse engineer, so to speak, is think about what you want highlighted in your obituary, deep but real, right? Then also reflect on what boundaries, make a list of the boundaries that you need in your life, and then get really clear on what is that thing that you don't want to have questions about at the end of your life. Like, I wish I would have done it. I'm so upset that I didn't X, Y, or Z. What is that thing? Okay. And what is your next step to start chipping away at that? Again, adopting this attitude of no matter what it takes, I'm determined to live fulfilled every day. I'm determined to be passionate, on purpose, on fire every day. I'm determined to make sure that this breath in my lungs is not wasted every day, right? Unattached to the outcome, because you just showing up and sowing and serving is where it's at. Okay? So talk about that for momentum. Intense momentum. Now, if you actually do this, that's tangible shift, the transformation, all of that start happening. But trust and believe this is work, but it is the most rewarding work of your life, and it's your legacy also. So keep that in mind. All right. Oh my goodness, guys, I hope this message blessed you. If it did, or if you're new here, make sure that you subscribe to the channel. That's the best way for me to know who's actually following. It's the best way to know when new videos are coming out and who's engaging with this content. It's a great way to share content. You can copy the link and share it with a friend. You can like it, make comments, all the things. And then I'm also going to post information below, which are different ways that you can connect with me, whether that's through coaching or courses or content that I've created, books that I've written, whatever it might be. Tools. They're tools for you to help you on the journey and to navigate from the inside out, right? To really work on this inner life and self-mastery. So if that is of interest to you, stay tuned and check out below. And until next time, guys, stay blessed.